Hello and welcome back to the Help We're Nerds podcast. As promised, in our first episode, we are going to be talking about dragons to go along with the How to Train Your Dragon live action release. And I have a familiar person with me today.
Hello, I'm Ashlea, and you'll know me as Top Nerd. I am so excited to be filming this episode. We're finally on my kind of like real stomping ground. We're getting a little bit into the world of Tolkien and fantasy and mythology and a little bit of maybe kind of ancient cultures. So this is really my nerddom. Anything kind of ancient or medieval period, especially to do with mythology and fantasy. Love it. So thank you for having me. I don't know if that's the right turn of phrase or
It's
more.
okay.
Thank you for letting me bully you into doing this episode, I guess.
You didn't have to bully me on this. Dragons are my special interest, if that makes any sense.
I love it.
I love dragons.
I love it.
I mean, my favourite hobby is Dungeons and Dragons.
True.
So, yeah. The main reason we're doing this is because pop culture kind of twists the term dragon, and some people have good reasons for why they create creatures that they say are dragons but aren't, and we will get into that. But first, I think we should explain what a dragon actually is per like our understanding.
It's general description, of what a dragon is.
This actually does vary between two different cultures. So there is the Western interpretation of a dragon. So that's your European style. It's St. George and all that. And then there is the Eastern understanding of a dragon, which is where you get creatures like Mushu and things like that, pop culture wise. Obviously, there are more reverent examples in the real world, but as we're a nerd podcast, I'm making a nerd reference.
So in general, a dragon is anything lizard-like or serpent-like a creature. Most of the time, it is depicted as an evil creature, but it's sometimes a creature for good, and this is where the two different mythologies will slightly differ, as we'll get into. So in medieval Europe, a dragon is usually depicted as a lizard-like creature with wings and a barbed tail, breathing fire. In fact, the word drakon, the ancient Greek word drakon, which is where we get the English word dragon, was usually used to depict any large serpent. So while we have this kind of later version of a dragon, the one you're familiar with, if I say dragon, the thing you're picturing, that's the European dragon, the common understanding of a dragon in popular culture. But actually, if we go a bit further back to sort of ancient Greece, it's any large serpent, including sea serpents. So anything like the Greek Hydra, for example, which obviously is a snake with many heads. The Babylonian, the Chaldean dragon, Tiamat, that had 4 legs and a scaly body with wings. It didn't breathe fire. And the biblical dragon of Revelation is described as the old serpent, and it has many heads as well. So
there's also the dragon connection with Satan in biblical terms, but
yes. So Red Dragon. Just realised the Hannibal Lecter series. That's where that comes from, isn't it? The Red Dragon is seen as a kind of devilish creature.
Yeah, there's in some biblical texts, Satan is described as being able to take the form of a dragon, it's a winged beast that can breathe fire, which a lot of people just associate
Interpret as a dragon.
as a dragon, because that is a winged beast that can breathe fire. Collectively, when we say that, what do you think of?
Yeah.
So
You think of a dragon. Yeah, so that one did actually surprise me actually while I was doing research, because I wouldn't have necessarily classed things like a hydra, leviathans, that sort of thing from ancient Greek mythology, as dragons. But I was looking into some research, and I was reading through some stuff done by Jasmine Elmer, who's a classicist, and she was looking at sort of like ancient Mesopotamia and ancient cultures, so ancient Greek and Romans, and she argues that hydras and stuff, by the pure definition of a dragon as a serpent-like creature, are classed as dragons, which I found quite surprising. The other thing I guess to mention is that you mentioned fire breathing. Now, obviously, we take this quite literally here in the modern world, that dragons will literally breathe fire.
yes,
There is some suggestion that the ancient Greeks didn't literally think there was a creature that was going around breathing fire. And the fire is more of a way in art to depict venom.
yeah.
Because how do you depict venom
Um,
in art?
I
But
mean,
venom has a burning sensation for a
when
lot
you
of
look
people when
at
they're
the 12 labors of Hercules, for example, you see that the Hydra is depicted at spitting venom at Hercules. In fact, it's Hydra venom soaked arrows that does Hercules in the end, because they soak his cloak in the venom.
Yes.
And that, and then what do you call it? In Percy
That's
Jackson and the Lightning Thief, the movie, they also depict the Hydra as spitting venom and fire. If you watch that film, now it's not done in the books or in season 1 of the show, but if you watch the film with, I think it's Logan Lerman, I think that's the actor's name. You do see when they're in the replica of the Parthenon, trying to get the pearl. It spits acid at them and then flames at them.
Yeah, so this idea of fire breathing isn't necessarily fire as well, just to put that out there. But yeah, basically, if you're thinking of a stereotypical dragon and a serpent-like creature, a winged serpent-like creature, you're thinking of the Western dragon.
Yes.
Asian and Eastern dragons are different, I believe, because obviously
They are.
here in Europe as well, dragons are seen as creatures of not necessarily evil, but they're not seen as benevolent, and they're definitely seen as things to be suspicious of. Like we've just said, there's connotations towards that sort of demonic.
They're considered creatures of sin, I would say. They're depicted as creatures that hide in caves with avarice and greed and.
Yes, and it's interesting you mentioned St. George, obviously, at the start of the podcast, because that's exactly what St. George does, isn't it? He overcomes the evil dragon that's terrorizing the village, and in doing so, makes the villagers promise, as kind of like his reward for them slaying the dragon, that they will all convert to Christianity. And so, yeah, the dragon's always very much seen as this kind of other creature that represents sin and evilness. And like,
even your personal hero, Tolkien, took from the depictions of dragons. And when you look at Smaug in Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, he epitomizes that greed, holding the lonely mountain. gold all to
He's,
himself and not
he's
allowing.
under. Yeah, he's literally. Um, he's described that his belly is crusted with the gems and fragments of gold. It's like embedded in his skin. He's laid on that pile of gold for that long. And it's called the Lonely Mountain because it's one mountain, but it epitomizes Smaug's. Smaug. It depends how you pronounce his name. But it epitomizes his isolation too. His greed has led to basically him being trapped in this mountain with just this gold, and he's perfectly content to do that.
He'd be the
As long
perfect
as
orange lantern from the Lantern Corps. What's mine is mine, and mine is mine is mine is mine is mine.
basically, yeah. But on the eastern side, things are quite different.
They are. So, Eastern Dragons, or and as we're calling them, because they can be split into three distinct regions. You have Chinese, you have Japanese, and you have Vietnamese, which all have their own slight interpretations. Now, they all tend to be depicted in the same way as more serpentine, with the long mustache style tendrils on the faces, forelimbs, and you don't tend to see wings on them either. Like, they're described as being able to fly, but you don't see wings. If you look at any depiction of an Eastern dragon, you'll see that they kind of just float, kind of like Falcor.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's very much a description of Falco from Neverending Story, isn't it?
It's like Falco was definitely inspired by this tradition.
Well, he
They're
calls himself a luck dragon,
they're
so.
also incredibly wise, and connected to good luck. Um,
hmm
like they're perceived as signs of good luck, uh, and for the ancient emperors, they claim connections over holy creatures. So they're divine figures rather than satanic figures. Um,
So, so literally complete opposite,
yeah,
which is interesting because I know the Chinese dragon, Lung, represents yang in the kind of yin yang of Chinese cosmology. Oh my God. Represents the yin yang of Chinese cosmology. There you go.
there we go.
Editing for you.
I knew what you were gonna say, but the minute I knew the minute I tried to help you, I was gonna end up saying it wrong, and that would have been even funnier.
So the yang represents the principles of heaven, and masculinity as well.
Yeah, which fits with them being connected with emperors, as opposed
Mhm,
to the phoenix, which I believe we're going to talk about in a different video, that is
mhm.
connected to the empresses. So,
Mm.
so
So yeah, so you've kind of got these two separate types of dragon.
uh,
Um,
I mean, they're also
but
connected with waterways and rain and the rainy season. A lot of weather gods are connected with dragons. You'll see a lot of Chinese gods riding dragons as mounts or having them as like allies and pets. And they're also known as the beings that taught humanity speech.
oh, I didn't know that. That's really interesting.
So, from what I've been able to find in my research, anyway, if anyone knows more on this than we do, correct us if we've got
Yes, we're
anything
not
wrong.
we're not dragon experts. We're just dragon admirers.
Especially when it comes to the eastern side of dragon culture. As Westerners, we know the western side pretty well, but
Well, I'd argue that that is because popular culture and fantasy literature favor the Western depiction
I,
of
I would
dragons.
agree.
When we see
I can pull up a
Sally,
few interpretations of the Eastern Dragon to mind.
yeah, so
Mushu being one, Falcor being technically one because, like you said,
one,
he's connected to luck and he moves like them. The the dragon from Once Upon a Time, which again is just a Mushu variant. Um,
Raya and the Lost Dragon and
Raya
Lost
from
Dragon.
Raya and the Last Dragon, yeah.
Yeah,
And
I don't know what the dragon's called. I completely
and
forgot. But
La and Shu, I think they're called, from Avatar: The Last Airbender,
yes.
which are obviously that is heavily inspired by this type of mythology.
Hmm.
So
So we've got some, but it's not as prevalent as the kind of fantasy. The I'd say the fantasy dragon is based on this kind of later European Christian
yeah, I
dragon.
mean, like I said,
I just want to preface that I said Christian dragon. There is no
yeah,
such thing as a Christian dragon. Just the dragon that comes around as Christianity is spreading.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
But
There's not a
what
there's
do you
not a
call
dragon mask for the Christian faith.
the only difference that I can see off the top of my head as well between like the three factions within Eastern culture
Mm.
is that the Vietnamese mythology sees that the dragons play a crucial role in the creation myth.
Oh,
Um,
that's really interesting.
I, like I said, I don't have an extensive knowledge on this. All I have is the notes that I was able to make, and they play a fairly, from what I've been able to gather, they play a fairly decent role in the myth of creation around Vietnamese mythology. So
Hmm. But I think because obviously we're going to go on now to discuss dragons in kind of popular
culture,
nerdy culture.
yes, which
Um,
fits more with our
but
vibe.
yes, but there could definitely be a part two here, and like we said, we've mentioned a couple of popular culture Eastern dragons there, but we you know that's not really the side we're going to go down today. We're gonna go down the other route. But if anyone has any kind of, watch this show, it's a really good depiction of that. Let us know in the comments because this is a side that we would love to explore a little bit more.
Yeah, it
Um,
definitely
there's a
is.
lot more as well. That this is a whistle stop tour through the history and mythology of dragons. There's a lot more we can say on this little sliver. So
Yeah,
there could definitely be a part
we
two.
just liked the
Kind
dichotomy
of.
between the fact that uh, over here we see dragons as these evil, um,
Mhm.
dark creatures, whereas in the East they're benevolent, light, divine beasts that bring water and heat and creation and light and wisdom.
Yeah. So shall we get into some fantasy dragons then?
Yes. Yeah, moving on from the mythology side and into different forms of dragons. Um, so, as we were saying, the Western dragon is often depicted as this hulking beast. Um,
Hmm.
it has four limbs, wings, a crown of horns on its head or a crest, a tail, and is usually described, seen in pop culture and literature as breathing flames. Um,
And being associated with like magic as well.
yeah, I mean, it depends on the story as to its demeanor, but often they are seen as
Mhm.
the antagonist. The reason why I'm
Yeah.
saying it depends on the story is you do have stories like the BBC Merlin show where the dragon is an antagonist to the main problem, Uther, but an ally to the main protagonist, Merlin.
Yes, and I have a dragon and a Merlin story for you, but I'll save that till later on.
Which I do like the interpretation of Kilgara in that show, but that's for later as well. Then there is the one that most people wouldn't really think of as a dragon, but the word is used interchangeably with dragons, and that's a drake, which is a dragon smaller without wings.
Mm.
Which the minute you take away the wings, people are like, "Is that really a dragon?" Because it just looks like a lizard that runs on the floor.
Yeah.
But it is technically part of the dragon family. Technically speaking, mythologically speaking, and it's just wingless. And then there is the one that everybody sees a lot of the times and gets called a dragon in a lot of pop cultures, and is the reason why this episode is even happening. The Wyvern. Yeah. The Wyvern is a giant lizard, smaller and slenderer than the traditional dragon, and unlike the drake and the dragon, has 2 back legs and only the wings.
Yeah, so the wings act as their arms.
Yeah, they act as their arms and their front legs. They would walk like bats do in real life. Now, they are the main reason that this episode is happening, because a lot of pop culture has taken these and started using them as dragons, as the format for dragons. 2 specific shows in general, but there are other examples. And then there is, last but not least, the worm, which, like the drake, doesn't have the wings, but it also doesn't have any legs. So it's literally just
serpentine is large. It's
a
not
giant
like
ass snake with a dragon head, basically. Yeah. So that's the different types of them that we're going to really cover. Now, if we go and look at How to Train Your Dragon, which this episode is connected to, it's clear to see that Toothless is connected to an actual dragon. If you look at his design, he has the crest of horns on his head, he has 4 limbs, wings, and a tail. But what is unique about How to Train Your Dragon is they call all species dragons, but they have dragons, they have wyverns, and they even have drakes thrown in to this like mix hodgepodge of beasts. When you look at, I believe it's the Monstrous Nightmare, for example. It's got the long neck, the horns on its head, 2 wings, and then 2 back legs.
Yes.
I think it's the one that Snotlow ends up riding in the end, when they all go to help Hiccup at the end get Toothless back.
Spoilers, I guess.
Spoilers for an animated movie that came out a few years, quite a while back, and a book that is really old. But also spoilers for the new film, which is
connected. Yeah, that's why I'm just saying it, just in case no one's come across How to Train Your Dragon before, and they're going to be seeing it for the first time.
Yeah,
you'll be seeing both chickens and wyverns on the screen.
Yeah, But How to Train Your Dragon just uses the umbrella term dragon, which technically they are all part of the same Draco family, I suppose,
Hmm.
to use the Latin term.
Yeah.
Um, they are
They're all
just
draconic.
they're all
They're
draconic.
just not.
They're not all dragons. It's like we're all sapiens, but we're not all the same. Like we have opposable thumbs, but that doesn't make us the same as monkeys.
Right, yeah, I get kind of what you're saying, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
there's distinct characteristics between the human race and monkeys that make us different enough that we're considered a different species,
Yes.
but we're still cousins,
Yes.
genetically speaking.
Yeah. However, there are shows, like you said,
That have,
where this conflation between this sort of the real pure essence of a dragon and a wyvern is kind of used interchangeably.
yes,
Which is where this whole episode actually stemmed from, because I have, and I know you said you have some information that may change my mind on this, but right now I have a bugbear with the show House of Dragon being called House of Dragon. I understand that the Targaryens in the Game of Thrones universe ride dragons, and that's why it's called House of Dragon. But they don't depict dragons in the show, they depict wyverns.
they do.
And so it annoys me that they're like, oh, look at the dragons. And I'm like, they're not dragons.
They're
But
not.
you said you have
I do
some
have some.
tidbit
I do have
for
some
one.
tidbits. I looked into
For
this
one.
because this also annoyed me, because as we've discussed, dragons are usually described as having 4 limbs and wings, whereas when you look at House of the Dragon and you look at Game of Thrones and you look at Balerion the Black Dread and you look at Rhaegar and you look at Meleys and all that stuff, they have 2 wings and 2 legs.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's not unlike How to Train Your Dragon that depicts multiple different types of dragon and shows us kind of like the family of dragons. House of the Dragon has one depiction
Yeah.
of supposedly what a dragon is, and it's not a dragon, it's a wyvern.
Yes.
So why does George R.R. Martin call
So,
them
George R.R.
dragons?
Martin was asked about this because in an article that I have found, and he's quoted saying, those 4-legged dragons are creations of medieval heralds who had never seen a dragon because they don't exist, and they decided dragons had 4 legs and wyverns only had 2, and people constantly correct me on that, and of course they're wrong. He goes on to say, the point is that in Westeros we do have dragons. So why would people put a 4-legged dragon on their shield when they can just go outside, see a dragon, and count 1, 2? That's all you need, plus the wings. And I checked with Neil deGrasse Tyson and got a yes. There are no 6-limbed animals on the face of the earth, so I went for that more realistic thing.
Okay, so his actual answer for why he calls wyverns dragons in the book is because dragons aren't real and he can say what he wants.
Basically.
Okay, but that's not the thing is, right? Let's I'm really sorry for people for their beliefs. Okay, dragons do not exist, or at least don't exist now. Maybe they did thousands of years ago. Well, they did. They're called dinosaurs.
If you reconstruct a T-Rex's bones in a specific way, you can get the exact skeletal structure for a dragon. For a wyvern. Just saying.
I was thinking more. Is it triceratops? Not triceratops.
I saw a video of a anthropologist reconstructing like with the dinosaur bones, putting the T-Rex bones because of the tiny little T-Rex arms in a
Mm.
specific structure. And when he did that, they had they looked like dragons, and he explained it with, well, why else would they have little arms unless they had wings?
Right, yeah. But I was thinking more of the actual bird ones, but I can't remember what they're.
You're on about oh man, that's
Because they have bat-like wings and then they have two little feet at
yeah.
the
You're
bottom.
what that is gonna bug me.
What are they called? But yeah, point is, um, dragons probably came to explain fossils, right?
Yeah.
If we're especially if we're thinking of the dragon we're thinking of, with bat-like wings and all that jazz. Um, in sort of ancient Greece and ancient Rome, they're volcanic
It probably came
islands.
from the fact that the people just found these dinosaur bones and just started putting them together.
Yeah, and was like, oh, that's what that looks like. These massive creatures that possibly had wings. Oh my God, they must have been ferocious. And like I said, a lot of these fossils were probably coming up because of volcanic eruptions and earthquakes, and so of course you're going to naturally associate these lizard-like creatures with wings as living under the ground, causing earthquakes and that connection to the volcano and fire and
Yeah.
stuff like that, right?
So
Um, the point is, right, I understand when we're saying, oh, he's got it wrong. It's not a dragon, it's a wyvern. That people could also be listening to this and listening to what you said that George R. R. Martin said and gone, well, he's got a point. Like,
yeah.
it's not real. But these are kind of the established rules of fantasy.
Yeah.
Um,
What he was trying to say
Game of
was that
Thrones
he
is doing
wanted to go with
dragons.
a realistic view, but
Mhm. But it does come across as I just wanted to call them dragons, so I called them dragons.
yeah, he basically saying, "Hey, I checked with an actual scientist. You don't get creatures with six limbs, so guess what? I didn't
So
create.
yeah, so I
So,
said what I said.
so I'm scientifically accurate. So I said what I said. Deal with it, nerds."
Yeah, which is not the little tidbit of information I was expecting. I'm not gonna lie. I thought that there might have been a convoluted fantasy reason why.
No,
Um, I thought it was
allegedly
going to be
wyverns also exist in the Song of Ice and Fire, but I've never seen them. Like I've read the
uh,
books and I've also watched all the shows, and allegedly
yeah.
that
I thought it was going to be connected to the kind of blood magic Targaryen, because if you're a Game of Thrones fan, House of the Dragon. So House of the Dragon goes into it a little bit more. The mythology behind the Targaryens is that there was some blood magic done in old Valyria, between kind of like these signature Valyrian families, and dragons, in order to then create a kind of like a new species of dragon, that was like, as genetics went on, it intrinsically bonded both rider and dragon together, and that's why only people of Valyrian blood can become dragon riders in the show, because there's like, I think it's like 7 families, right, that are
yeah, and then
blood.
Daenerys gets a weird extra boost because she's the only one we've seen be freaking fireproof.
Yeah, that's not a thing in Song of Ice and Fire. Just putting that out there. They're not they're not immortal and fireproof. That's just Danny for some reason. But yeah. So I thought you were going to say, oh, the reason that the wyverns are called dragons is because dragons are the original creatures that the blood bond happened with, and through this kind of blood magic, they've become wyverns, so they've become like a subsect. I
See,
wasn't
that would make
expecting a.
more sense, but no, George R. R. Martin was basically a kid throwing his toys at the pram. in a sense, and was basically, because I said so, nerds, fuck you.
Okay.
That's the way I'm interpreting what was written in this article. Like, we weren't in the room when he actually said it, so we don't know exactly in the context that he said it, but the way that it's been written, this article was basically just a stop asking me, you're wrong.
In my world, they're called dragons. End of story.
Yeah.
But it's interesting as well because Harry Potter, specifically the movies, also show wyverns and call them dragons.
However, the
And
books describe
I was
actual
going to say,
dragons.
yeah, and the official, because obviously you can buy the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, which depicts magical creatures in the Harry Potter universe.
Which
And the
is
official
not the
drawing
movie.
in the official Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them book show them as having 4 legs and 2 wings. So the movies took liberties and changed them from classic dragon to wyverns. And I do think that's because more and more, like the popular culture image of a dragon is more wyvern than dragon.
I do
Which is
agree with you there. I mean,
frustrating.
like we were saying earlier, we don't have a lot of Eastern depictions of dragons, and I find it fascinating that, as you'll probably know, listeners, from last week's episode, I watch a lot of anime, along with other nerds in the round table. I find it fascinating that a lot of animes with dragons in it also don't depict Eastern dragons, and you'd think they would with them being made in Japan. But one of my favorite animes is called Reincarnated with a Slime, and one of the main characters in that is a dragon, but he's depicted as the dragon we've described: 4 limbs, wings, tail, crest of horns. That's
Yeah.
that's anime, and you, like I said, you'd expect the serpentine mustache style dragon,
Mm.
but it's not. It's this dark western style dragon with destructive capabilities. So it's even bleeding over there into their pop culture, which I find fascinating.
Yeah, I'm now thinking of different pop culture dragons. So obviously we've talked about Tolkien, very traditional dragon.
Like the book, like like Harry Potter, the movies and the books have a different depiction of Smaug. The movie depicts Smaug as a wyvern, whereas the book depicts him as a dragon, but also refers to him as a drake, which is confusing.
Yes, just a little bit. So basically, if we're talking about things on a screen, so far the purest dragon has been Toothless from How to Train Your Dragon.
If we want to get specific, the purest dragon that there is on screen is probably Dragon from Shrek.
Oh my god, yeah. How could I forget Dragon from Shrek?
She is a red dragon with horns, wings, 4 limbs, and a tail.
4 limbs and a tail, and she's scaly like a lizard.
Yep.
And she breathes fire.
She looks like the Welsh dragon. Like the...
Yes. Sorry, I got excited because I have a story about the Welsh dragon. Do you want to hear? My story?
Go on.
So the red dragon, or Ffrigog, forgive my Welsh listeners, but I had to try and say it in Welsh. The story of the Welsh dragon is so interesting. So it actually comes from Geoffrey of Monmouth's 12th century text, Historia Regnum Britannia, which is like the history of Britain, which is where a lot of our myths and stuff here in Britain comes from. So I think King Arthur, like this is where all these sort of things originate. And the Welsh dragon. So the story goes that there's this man called Vortigern, and he's a Celtic king, and he's searching for somewhere to build a castle. And he finds a spot he likes on this hillside of Dinas Emrys. And the problem is, though, that the foundations of the castle keep falling down. So he keeps trying to build this castle on this hill, and it's just not stable. Until this young boy comes up to him and tells him that the reason the castle isn't going to keep standing up is because the site, the hill, is located directly above an underground lake. And on that lake, under the ground, is two dragons that are sleeping. And supposedly, this little boy that talks to Vortigern and is like, there's dragons under there, grows up to become Merlin. So Vortigern digs into the ground, and him and his men, they find this lake as well as the two dragons. And one of them is red, and one of them is white. And because they've now dug under the ground, they wake these two dragons up. And it culminates in this ferocious battle between the two dragons. And the white dragon is dominant for most of the battle. But then the red dragon ultimately wins the fight. And so young Merlin, as we'll call him, tells Vortigern, oh, that's a representative of what's going to happen here in Wales. The red dragon represents kind of native Britons, so the Welsh, as obviously Britain isn't just Welsh at this point, but in terms of the story of the Welsh dragon, we'll just say the Welsh. And their upcoming battles against the invading Anglo-Saxons. So like the Anglo-Saxons will seem on top for such a long time, but then the native Britons are going to win their upcoming battle. And so the red dragon has always been a symbol of kind of independence and overcoming the enemies for Wales. And then obviously it's on the shirt, the rugby shirts and the Welsh flag. Little tidbit about the Welsh flag, by the way, because I did not know this until I looked up this story. That the Welsh flag is actually the flag of Henry Tudor, so Henry VII.
Cool.
So he Henry VIII's dad created that flag apparently. So the red dragon is kind of really coolly in Wales connected to the Arthurian legend, but it's also this very powerful symbol of kind of strength and independence.
So what I'm hearing really is cool. That BBC missed a trick by not making Kilgara red.
He should have been red, yeah, according to the myth.
I also heard something else there. The hill had Emrys written into the name, which is the druid name for Merlin in the BBC show.
Yeah, so the place is called Dinas Emrys. It's like a hill, and apparently in 1945 they did an excavation there, and it showed that there was evidence that a lake and a fortress had actually been in that area once upon a time. So there was some truth behind that story. So who knows? Maybe the Red Dragon of Wales was a real thing. Who knows?
It was. It's the Welsh pride.
Yeah, you don't mess with the Welsh. But yeah, I found that really fascinating. I was like, yes, somehow we've been able to connect our history of dragons with Arthurian legend.
Well, it's not that hard, really, when you think about it.
Yeah, but I don't think people necessarily automatically associate King Arthur with dragons.
Maybe not. I do, because of the Merlin show and the fact that his literal last name is Pendragon.
Oh, of course. Well, now I'm sounding stupid. And in Sword of the Stone, they change into dragons, don't they?
Yeah, Madam Mim changes into a dragon, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought it was really interesting how like this difference of color as well, white versus red, because that's the thing in D&D as well, isn't it? Colors of dragons.
Color does denote in D&D, yeah. And actually, going back to a creature you mentioned very, very, very early on in this podcast, um, there
Hmm.
are two divine dragons in D&D, Bahamut and Tiamat.
Yeah.
Bahamut is the benevolent god of dragons and is metallic in nature. I believe he's platinum, described as a platinum dragon. Whereas Tiamat is chromatic, meaning she fits all the colours from blue, red, black, white, and green. I couldn't remember the other colour then.
Hmm.
And has 5 heads.
Oh wow.
Very Hydra-like. In that sense. Tiamat is known as the mother of all evil dragons.
Right, okay.
And chromatic dragons come in the colours that I just listed as Tiamat's heads. So,
Ah,
but each colour denotes what power that dragon has. So a red dragon is a fire dragon. A
okay.
a blue dragon spits lightning. A white dragon spits ice. And I always get this the wrong way round, but either a green or a black dragon spits acid and poison. D&D nerds in the comments, tell me which way round that is. I always get that wrong. Whenever I'm playing D&D, I always have to look and go, oh yeah, that's the damage type you do. I believe it's poison for the green and acid for the black, though, if I'm remembering off correctly.
I don't think I've battled a green dragon yet. Oh, according to the monster manual, it's poison for green dragons.
Which makes sense. It also denotes where they live. So you find red dragons in like volcanic warm caves. You find white dragons in like cold environments. You find green dragons in swamps and things like that. Blue dragons,
Huh.
for some reason I don't get this one. Blue dragons, even though they're connected to lightning, you find them in the desert.
Oh, that one's interesting.
I would have thought you would have found them like on mountain tops and stuff like that,
Hmm.
or rainforests.
Yeah.
But it says deserts, which
Okay.
interesting.
So I put a question because
Yes,
I obviously, if anyone's listened to our kind of over the Christmas period sort of episodes, they'll know we play D&D.
yeah,
But I haven't battled a lot of dragons in my D&D career.
yes,
But I've noticed in Legend of Vox Machina, so that's obviously a critical role product.
yes.
The dragons take human form.
They do. They
Is
have
that a thing?
it is in D&D. Ancient dragons, so that is the most powerful a dragon can be, the apex of a dragon, have the ability to polymorph, which is a way of
Okay.
shape-shifting. And they can naturally, it's not a spell, they can naturally do it, and they can take the form of any creature they see fit.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Metallic dragons they're more neutral aligned, whereas, like I said, chromatic are evil aligned. I wouldn't say that
Hmm.
chromatic dragons are that metallic dragons are good necessarily. I mean, you can get good dragons, but I would say that they're more neutral. Like they tend to not get involved, but if they do, they won't kill you for just encroaching on their territory.
Right, okay.
If that makes any sense. To be honest, they fit the more Kilgara from the BBC show vibe to me, because when you think about him, he was fine with Merlin, but he had no qualm in killing anybody else.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Okay.
that's and their skills are unique as well. Like gold have fire breath, so they're the equivalent of red for the evil side, whereas silver has ice and brass has lightning.
Okay. So, as a novice, I'm not a novice, but I say, as a not index. What am I going for?
As
As
a
a kind of
novice dragon hunter
average, as a novice dragon hunter in D&D, who would basically mark my death? Like if this particular color dragon shows up,
the
I'm
thing
screwed.
is, depending on the level, you wouldn't want to see any ancient dragon at all, depending on color.
Yeah.
However, say you're level 12, which is where most
Yep.
campaigns end. You would not want to run into a red, in my opinion. Red dragons are the most powerful. They are the highest CR, which is, for my dungeon masters out there, you'll know that number. That is annoying as hell because it's hard to balance, but CR is like, can you beat this, basically? And for dragons, red dragons have the highest in all stats, from worm to youngling to adult to ancient.
Okay.
Ironically, like we said, that dragons can be described as worms, but in D&D, worms, there are two forms of worms now in D&D. There's worms which are basically just hatched, so they don't have their legs yet. And there are great worms, which are even above ancient, which means they've evolved to the point where they don't need their legs, and they're so powerful and so big that basically they would destroy anything.
Oh, okay.
So, they can be found in Fizban's Treasury of Dragons.
Okay.
Which, is really cool. And what's awesome is Fizban himself is a dragon.
Okay. So, essentially, then the D&D fantasy dragons take from multiple different dragon myths and cultures, and then kind of add a bit of spice on there.
And drakes and wyverns show up in D&D as well as separate species. So a wyvern in D&D is described as a small draconic-like beast with its two wings and thingy, but it has a poisonous tail like a scorpion, and it can spit poison venom, which in some depictions are how wyverns are described. Not often, but they can be described that way. And drakes are just draconic mounts, basically. So, like, dragon horses.
Yeah, and then obviously in D&D you also have the idea of dragonborn, which is a different species.
Yeah, which is a humanoid dragon, which basically just means that the bard got freaky with a dragon and out popped a dragonborn.
Which I still have yet to play a campaign where a bard manages to seduce a monster. But I'm still young. It could happen.
I mean, if Donkey can pull it off, anyone can pull it off.
I don't even want to think about how Donkey pulled it off.
The love potion from Shrek 2. Donkey got turned into a stallion, she got pregnant.
Okay, there's some strict conspiracy theories there.
Well, that's the only way it works. Otherwise, what the hell happened?
I don't know. I'd rather not think about it. But yeah, basically the history of dragons, both in mythology and in fantasy, is actually quite
Unique and fun.
yeah, expansive and unique and um very twisty taily. And so I guess what kind of started our whole thing off as being like, oh, George R. R. Martin can't call those dragons there wyverns. The more we've looked into it, the more we've gone, well, a dragon, there's an idea of a dragon, and
Yeah,
that's the idea we've clung to as what a dragon is. But actually, the word dragon can mean
multiple
so
things.
much and multiple things across multiple cultures.
The fact that a
And I
Hydra
guess
falls into that thing just baffled me. When we were doing this research and we were talking about it, and we both went, Hydra?
yeah, and I guess rather than this whole started as let's try it like
Let's
it
prove.
wasn't
Let's show what a dragon actually is, and explain it to people that have only watched House of the Dragon. That's kind of what the premise was.
that's
Uh,
kind of the premise. But actually, going through
we've
this
proved
journey made
ourselves wrong.
we've proved ourselves wrong. But also, I've now gone. Why we only like now my bugbear has changed to why am I only seeing wyverns mainly on screen? I want to see all these different types of dragons. I want to see an episode now of Percy Jackson where a hydra or a leviathan turns up and Percy's like, I'm gonna go battle a dragon, and everyone's like, what? And he's like, it's a dragon, it's a serpent.
Yeah.
Like,
That would be really funny if he's like, I'm gonna go battle the dragon, and then everyone just looks at him like, Percy, that's a Hydra, and he's like, yeah, same thing.
it's the same thing. Yeah, brilliant.
That'd be such a Percy thing to do as well.
It would be a Percy thing to do, or that we actually, I'd love for a fantasy series like Merlin or Percy Jackson, those kind of easy watching 6 p.m. on Saturday night telly, show sort of things. I'd love one that centers around the Eastern Dragon.
Yes, give me more of that. And anime, use your own dragon more, please.
Eastern
Like,
Dragon.
if there are animes that tend to use that dragon more, please people put them in the comment, because the ones that I've found, they tend to use the Western dragon, and it just it like I said, it completely blows me away, because it's like, why? The Eastern dragon is miles more interesting, in my opinion. This divine beast, like, especially for, like I said, one of my favorite shows, Reincarnated as a Slime. They're described as these spiritual beasts that are part of creation. They don't die. If someone slays a dragon, they come back with all their memories and everything, because they are literally tied to creation itself. Takes a while, but they come back. They're like reborn. That fits more of an Eastern style than a Western.
Yeah, definitely.
But with that,
So, yeah.
otherwise we'll be talking about dragons all day. And at time of recording, I've got Doctor Who to go watch, which the review will be coming out very soon at the time of recording. So, for this season. So no spoilers there, but it's gonna be a doozy to review this one, because this season has been really good. So, in my opinion. But
So you've got that to look forward to,
yes,
and you've got How to Train Your Dragon to look forward to. If
yes,
you're a fan of the live action, I believe we're 2 weeks away at time of recording from, or maybe 3, until it's in cinemas.
yeah.
So
I can't wait for it to drop in cinemas. I mean, the trailers make it look fantastic. So, as long as it lives up to the original, I don't mind if it puts its
But
own spin on it, just as long as it lives up to it.
and as long as Toothless remains a four-limbed, two-winged
Beast.
dragon,
Yeah.
because I'm crowning him. For the dragons we've discussed in this episode, apart from Dragon from Shrek, he is one of the more traditional
Yes.
actual dragons.
It's him,
So well
Dragon from
done.
Shrek, Kilgara, and the beast Maleficent turns into when she turns into a dragon.
But we'll crown Toothless for now king of the dragons.
King of the modern dragons, because all the other ones are
King of
old.
the modern dragons. King of the modern dragons.
All hail Toothless. And with that, thanks for watching, everyone, and thanks for joining me on this dragon tangent. Ash.
Yeah, if you want more dragons, shout out for more dragons. And if you want more Dungeons and Dragons, because now I have so many questions about dragons in D&D, and to connect it to what's coming this year, now I'm thinking, will season 5 of Stranger Things feature a dragon of some form?
Well, there's rumours that Tiamat is
we'll
the final boss.
see. Oh my god, exciting. Right. It's a dragon sort of year, people. So if you want more dragons, let us know.
Yeah, let us know. Alright, thank you guys, and stay nerdy, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.